Hello and welcome to the Family Brand Podcast. My name is Chris. I'm a husband, a father, and an entrepreneur.
My name's Melissa, and I am a wife, mother, former nurse turned real estate investor.
And we believe the greatest gift you can give your child is a last name that stands for something.
Your last name is your family's brand.
If you are a parent who wants to raise your child to know who they are, love who they are, and believe in who they are, this show is for you.
We promise to bring you real and authentic conversations with parents and experts who are committed to making their family their life's most important work.
This show will help you take a stand for your family and to raise your children by design, not default.
Welcome to this week of the Family Brand Podcast. I have special guest Katie Kimball with me today. Welcome, Katie. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Melissa. It's great to get to connect with your audience.
So Katie reached out to me recently, and she and Chris knew each other in the past. How long ago did you guys work together, would you say, Katie?
That's a great question. Probably 2017 or 18. So long time.
Awesome. It's a long time. And Chris, you had emailed Chris last year and he had never responded until this year. And Katie was like, hey, Chris just sent me your email, Melissa, about an amazing thing that Katie runs during the summer. So I'm glad that a year later, Chris got back to your email and connected us because you have something amazing that I'm excited to share with everyone today.
Thank you. I know the timing was pretty funny on that.
I know anyway. So this thing that I've been teasing, this amazing thing is Katie does a virtual summer camp every year. And we'll get into a little bit of what that looks like. But when Katie sent that over, I was like, this looks so fun, and not just fun, but useful. Like there's cooking and life skills and things that real world kids need to know today. So before we jump into maybe those details, will you tell us a bit about yourself and your business, your line of work?
For sure. Well, I am a mom of four. Currently they're 9, 12, 15, and just turned 19. So we're kind of in, our feet are in all the areas of parenting except toddlerdom. And I've been teaching my kids to cook for quite a long time. And it was probably 8 years ago that I realized that other parents needed help with that too. Like most of our generation, we don't really know what we're doing in the kitchen. Our parents didn't teach us generally to cook, but a lot of us have a real yearning for our kids to know the basics, for our kids to know the life skills, possibly, I think, because when many of us entered adulthood, we were sort of fumbling about, we're like, we don't know how to adult. And I think we want better for our kids, but we don't really know what to do. And so as an elementary educator, as a mom of four and someone who has fumbled through things, I felt like I could step into that gap and really help parents teach their kids to cook. And that has become this big life skills goal, this big life skills mission, partly because I kept seeing on our exit surveys of families who are purchasing our cooking class, we'd say, well, why did you buy this class? And time again, the top answer was, we just want our kids to have life skills. So I thought, gosh, what would happen if I invited other experts to help? Because I'm not a gardener. I have a brown thumb myself, so I can teach the cooking part and some other little things. But I pulled in dozens of other experts to teach topics like woodworking and auto maintenance and bike maintenance and how to install, a light switch in your home, like really kind of high level stuff for our teens. And then simple things for our little ones, like how to breathe when you're anxious about a test, to help yourself get through that, and how to make a phone call. You would not believe, Melissa, last year how many parents said, oh my goodness, I never even realized that my child's never used the phone to talk to someone. So these simple skills that we're kind of losing them in the digital age. And so I love, it's just such a joy to bring experts together and share both kind of those simple old fashioned skills, but also the digital age skills that they'll need to know, like how to manage your device so that it doesn't manage you, and lots of techie stuff too.
Yeah, I feel like I always hear from families today that families are so busy kind of getting those have to do things done, like whether that's the homework or getting the kids where they need to be. I mean, and I guess I can speak from experience. I feel like sometimes I'm failing at some of those other things. Like my son, for example, my 16-year-old, he recently told me, I said something about, he's starting to become really into thrifting and like buying his own clothes, and he has some income. And so I suggested, I'm like, yeah, maybe you could budget a certain amount of money, for your clothes every month. And he was like, what's a budget? And I was like, oh no, I'm failing you. But yeah, I had never even thought like, oh, we should teach budgeting to my son anyway. So just highlights for me that yeah, these are real things that our kids are going to go out into the world, and it's going to be so great if they know them, but there's so many gaps of things that I haven't taught. Okay, I'm so interested how this started with cooking for you. What, I guess, when you're teaching someone to cook, a kid to cook, what are like the first things that you teach them? Or is there a dish you always say, like, okay, this is the first thing that I want you to learn or that I want you to master in the kitchen?
We start at Kids Cook Real Food with kids as young as age 2. And so at that age, it's anything that uses those small motor skills, which are very kind of preschool oriented skills, and gives them a little bit of confidence that they can do something themselves. So for our little tiny ones, it's things like using a butter knife to cut a banana or to cut, some soft pieces of melon or cooked potato or cooked carrot. They're going to learn to measure a teaspoon of salt or oregano or whatever, because that's super empowering for little ones. Just if you can say, okay, honey, like mama's making this Italian pasta dish and I need a teaspoon of oregano, you can send your little one to the table once you've taught it, right? So you teach it separately and it's quick and easy. And then they can struggle about and make mistakes and make their little mess or whatever. They bring you a teaspoon of oregano. Now at dinner, you get to say, this tastes so good. Who's responsible for all that good flavor, right? And then your 3-year-old is like beaming, feeling like hot stuff. And that confidence and that feel of doing something well makes them want to come back. And it just kind of cements that in. So it's these really, really simple skills for little ones. Now, I know a lot of your listeners probably have older kids and they're like, Katie, I didn't start that young. My kid is not 2 or 3 anymore. And so at that point, as soon as a child can read, so about second grade ish, right? And beyond, now the world is open to them. So I actually start by teaching them how to read a recipe. That's a different skill than a chapter book or a picture book, kind of like you discovered with the budget. Like, oh my goodness, I can't just give my kid a recipe and say, let's try this, because I don't know what TSP period means, and maybe if they're in second grade, they don't know fractions yet. So it's this whole kind of code you have to crack for how to read a recipe, read it through, get out all the ingredients, and just help them be organized. And then again, it's those basic skills. How do we use the stove safely? How do we measure properly so that our muffins turn out? And what I like to empower parents with is that, at least for me, I think it's important that we teach skills in little tiny chunks, not necessarily how to make a recipe, but how do we measure? How do we crack an egg? How do we flip a pancake or a burger or whatever you're flipping? So you can take a recipe and kind of break it down into its component parts. So instead of thinking, oh man, I got to dedicate 45 minutes, maybe it's going to take an hour and a half because kids are slow, of my time on Saturday to make muffins. Like, I don't have time for that, right? We put that kind of thing off. But if I say, all right, moms and dads, teach your kid, whatever their age, to measure a flat teaspoon. That's it. And they're like, oh, well, I can do that, right? I can do that in 5 minutes. And so it's really just breaking it down into what are the tools our kids need in their toolbox to be able to someday, when they have enough tools, look up a recipe and go, oh, I can do that, right? I have the skills to be able to make that. And that's where the beauty comes in of the kids and their confidence and their creativity really increasing. And it's so fun to watch when kids begin to feel that authentic confidence. Because, and a sociologist told me this too, we've seen it time and time again, like in my own family, in our member kids, when they get confident in the kitchen, they become more confident in other areas of life. They're more able to raise their hand in class. They're more able to talk to people that they don't know. They're more able to kind of put themselves out there because we have one bucket of confidence. We're one human being. And so if we can build confidence anywhere, it helps them everywhere. And so I feel like teaching kids to cook and teaching kids life skills, it's like this bigger mission for me to decrease the numbers of kids who are struggling with anxiety and depression and suicidal tendencies. And this may sound like, oh, come on, Katie, like you're you're exaggerating, you're blowing this out, but it's true. Like, our kids are struggling so deeply, and it's partly because they don't have skills and competencies that make them feel like they know what to do in the world.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And you're right. I wouldn't have necessarily made that connection on first thought, but now that you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Another thing I see happening with that too is connection. Like when you're teaching a kid how to make a phone call, they're teaching them how to connect with people. Like when you're in the kitchen teaching how to measure, it's like, okay, that's a little connection. And of course that is not only giving them skills, but I read a book recently that said the way to combat, say, addiction is with connection. And so I feel like that's all related. The more we can do that. And I will say to my oldest son, again, I feel like I did the work with him in the kitchen, even when I felt like this is going to take way longer. And I haven't done as well with my other kids. But it's actually amazing now because he's 16 and I can be like, hey, I'm running late. I got to run your brother to practice. Can you start dinner? Or I'm getting home late. Will you throw dinner in the Instant Pot? And he can be like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, all of this time like invested is totally paying off. And he like has a knack for it and he enjoys it. And of course I enjoy that help. And anyway, I'm so glad looking back that I took the time at the beginning when he was younger to put in that work.
Yeah, I love that you brought up connection because that's definitely another of my secret missions is to build family bonds. And it's some of my favorite stories that come out of these summer camps. We're going into the third season of Life Skills Summer Camp are the parents who tell the stories. Oh, like my 4 and 6-year-old wanted to do the auto maintenance workshop, even though it was labeled teen. So my husband sat down, they watched it. You should have seen their faces. They ran out to the car to like check the oil, and they were so excited that we needed an oil change. I'm like, oh my gosh, how sweet is that, right? And I hear from a lot of moms too who say, I want to show my kids that I'm a lifelong learner too, like and learn with them, but I don't always know how to do that. Right? Like we don't always know how to talk out loud what we're doing so that our kids actually see it. But our camp has tracks for adults too. So the kids will be watching some of their workshops, or sometimes parents are learning literally right along with the kids in the kid or teen tracks. But then there's parent tracks too. So they can say, oh, well, what did you learn at camp? Oh, well, I learned, some other stuff from the parenting experts. And it's so beautiful to see and hear about the family dinner conversations that arise from the, parents and teens and kids all kind of doing different things and then coming together to talk about it.
That's beautiful. Okay, tell us. I feel like this is a good segue into the specifics of the summer camp. We've kind of been dancing around it a bit, but will you tell us like the dates and, what people could expect, what that kind of looks like exactly?
Well, we run free camp week in the summer this year, 2024. It's June 24th to 28th. The good news is that the moment you register, you actually get access to 13 workshops right away. So you can kind of start now whenever your kids get out of school or on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, you can jump in right away. And it's completely virtual. It's all online. So that makes it internationally accessible. Our camp leaders are experts in all sorts of different fields. Like I said, cooking, gardening, financing, stress management. We've got quite a few integrative pediatricians this year, counselors, just people who have a heart for kids. Many of them are parents and grandparents themselves. And what I tell my camp leaders is if you can teach it in 12 minutes, don't take 15, right? If you can teach it in 5, don't take 8. Like these are kids. And so we try to keep the workshops very short. So each workshop has a video and something to print so that the kids have, something they can write down. Sometimes parents like to see what they're doing if they don't have time to watch the videos with them. But the idea is really productive, short screen time. And then each camp leader sends them off into the real world to complete some sort of mission. And during free camp week, they get to enter for prizes every time they complete a mission. And I think we're over $8,000 in prizes right now. So that's super motivating to some kids. Obviously, we'd love them to be all intrinsically motivated to learn their life skills. That's not always reality. So prizes are available.
And what would you say do you have like a most popular class that people gravitate towards, or what does that look like?
Well, we don't know yet because these are brand new every year, but we do have some returning camp leaders who have been super popular in the past. So last year, I've kind of mentioned already, we did a 3-part auto maintenance series that our family filmed that locally at a car dealership. And so we were able to do another 3-part series this summer. So I know kids and teens will be looking forward to that. This year, we're teaching how to jump your car, how to wash and detail. And then I think parents are going to learn a lot from this one. It's called What's That Noise? And what does it mean? Do I need to take my car into the shop? That one was pretty funny because our camp leader, Sam, looked at my son who's 19 and he was like, Paul, how many lights do you have on your dash? Dude, it's like, you need to come in and see me next week, man. So it's just very authentic that sometimes teens don't know. They think that the lights are emojis, I have heard.
Really?
They text their parent, like, what is the emoji that just came on in my car? And I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna tackle this one head on. So that was very popular last year. Melissa Griffin, HR Mom, is a super popular camp leader as well. She tackles the beauty of ADHD and how to use your ADHD brain for your best, your best life and your best effort. So she typically, like last year and this year both, she'll do a parent workshop and a kid workshop kind of on the same topic, but they're getting it from different angles, which is again really cool because then the parents and kids can come together and talk about it. So I know that those will be very popular. I know that cooking and gardening is always very popular. We've got a camp leader teaching how to grow a garden from your grocery store. So like the seeds that you can actually get in your tomatoes and in your peppers that you just buy at the store. And then we're teaching how to make like homemade gelatin, how to love Brussels sprouts. That's a cool one. So my family filmed how to cook Brussels sprouts in a few different ways. And it's a spin-off from Dr. Sarah Ballantyne, who is the founder of Nutrivore. So her mission in life is to help people understand like what's healthy about food instead of focusing on the negative. And so she teaches kids like why you might not like certain foods. She starts with genetics and moves into like preparation, and it's super cool. So we spun off that and used her tips. And I know kids always love the entrepreneurship track too, where they're starting a business or they're trying, like Matt of Paleo Valley is teaching how to have an upsell. So he's going to talk about how McDonald's made $9 billion by asking, would you like fries with that?
Wow.
What? I know. And so it's like, okay, kids, you got a lemonade stand? What can you add to that lemonade to increase the customer value? And so the kids learn these like, cool business terms. They kind of feel like hot stuff. And then they're going to be able to implement it right away. And it's just, there's 100 workshops. So it's hard
100.
to give
Wow.
a good window. Yeah. It's hard to give it like a quick perspective, but it's always fun to watch the kids' favorites and to see their pictures in the review section that they get to share with each other.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. And with such a wide variety of options, there's going to be something that every family will be able to grab onto and be like, yes, like I'm excited about this. So that's amazing that you have so many options for families.
Yeah, exactly. There really is something for everyone. And I think what's cool is, we've got the breadth. We don't have a lot of depth, but that's purposeful because if you think about, you're a mom, I'm a mom. We can only introduce our kids well to what we're familiar with. And we're familiar with a very small slice of the world, And so again, back in season 1, I can remember a story of people who wrote in and said, okay, our 9-year-old took the podcasting workshop and learned how to basically interview someone well, like ask good interview questions, which is super cool because that's also the art of good conversation. And they said, first of all, he's loving it. And second of all, dang, he's actually a really good interviewer as a 9-year-old kid. And they're like, we never would have known that he had this hidden talent because we wouldn't have said like, oh, well, let's introduce him to podcasting, right? Like
Totally.
it's just not something that comes to people's mind. So it was so neat that he got this little taste, and who knows if he'll ever, use it or become a podcaster or a news anchor or something. But he's had that exposure. And I think that's a beautiful gift to give your kids too, is I don't know all these things, but here's 62 experts that, can be on my parenting team and see what your kids are interested in.
Yeah. And sometimes too, Chris and I joke that maybe your kid even has heard you talk about something 10 times and hearing it from someone else a slightly different way, even though it's may or may not be the same thing, it's going to hit differently. And it might be like light bulb moment because it's like the fun, we call it like the fun uncle or the fun aunt effect, where it's these other incredible adults like that are pouring into your child, and who wouldn't want that for their children?
Yeah, I totally need to add that to my registration page, like the fun aunt and uncle effect, because it's totally true, right? Like cleaning the bathroom, brushing your teeth, and cleaning your bedroom are 3 topics that I thought would not go over well in past seasons. I'm like, oh man, these are going to be duds. And then kids get all excited about it, and parents are like, thank you. Like they just needed someone else. They just need someone else other than mom and dad, to tell them to do it. So this year we have some super boring workshops like dusting, sweeping, sorting the laundry. Yawn, snore. They're going to be terrible. But they're not. That's the crazy thing, is they're not. As kids, especially the littler ones, will get super into it. So have fun with those chores this summer, parents.
Okay, this sounds amazing. I genuinely am looking forward to this. And I can already think like, okay, for my teenagers, like, yes, I bet they'll be interested in the car things. For my younger ones, my one son, 9-year-old, he loves gardening. So this sounds so fun. Where can people research and sign up for your free summer camp?
Yeah, we're going to send them through Family Brand. So go to kidscookrealfood.com, family brand LSN3. So that's Life Skills Now is the name of the camp. So kidscookrealfood.com/family brand LSN3. And like I said, immediately you get 13 workshops. So you can kind of play around and get started. We even have a weekly prize opportunity attached to one of those workshops to like make sure your kids stay motivated and are really looking forward to free camp week in June.
Amazing. And that I know is a kind of a mouthful. So I'll check the show notes. I'll put the link in the show notes for that. And then I guess I have maybe one last question, which is you've shared a few examples of families that have had really cool experiences with this camp in the summer. Is there any story or maybe a couple of stories that stand out to you as like these just really transformative or just really cool stories about people that have attended the virtual summer camps?
Oh, that's a fun question. The pictures stand out in my mind. So I'm imagining last year we had a flower arranging workshop, and the number of kids, boys and girls, who loved going to, with permission, cut flowers in their family's garden or wildflowers, and arrange those was so fun. We had making fermented kvass last year. I wasn't sure how that, it's like a natural soda alternative. And that was really cool to see how many kids were like holding up their little glass of, they got to choose their own fruit and ferment this fruit kvass. And in year one, they made a sourdough starter. And so that's really cool for kids to see. It's like science and cooking combined because you get to see like the wild yeast start to make bubbles, and kids would get so excited. And so many parents said, I've tried to make my sourdough starter a million times, and here my kid is beating me at it. So this year they'll get to use that starter. They'll get to learn that skill again and use it to make pancakes and waffles. So it's hard to know, like I don't get to hear the whole story, right? If a kid actually started a business and did it all summer or whatever. Oh, there's one more. Okay, this is actually really good. One girl last year did all 94 workshops in 1 week. And her mom is like going, oh my gosh, now she's making homemade pasta and sauce. Like, I can't even believe what she's doing. And she chatted a lot with my team on our live chat, and she would find little mistakes and little problems we had, or she'd ask really good questions. So we hired her this year as part of our quality control team.
Amazing.
And she's 13. So that is definitely, I do know the end of that story. That was a huge success for her because now she's learning what it's like to have a job as a 13-year-old online.
That's so cool. And yeah, what I hear you saying is it's just these little snapshots and these moments creating, and I guess like these small moments are all leading to these bigger things for families and kids and building that confidence of them, like one little class or one little skill at a time. And I just think that that's so beautiful. And again, I'm so excited to show my kids this. So thank you for bringing this to our audience and for bringing this to the world, really. Do you have any final thoughts to share with the Family Brand audience?
Well, first, I can't wait to hear your stories, Melissa, of your kids. I'll stalking your Instagram that week. Like, oh, what are they up to?
Yes.
But I think for sure what I want families to hear is whether I get to help, whether, Life Skills Now gets to be part of your family or not. It's a good thing that you're listening to this podcast. And hopefully over the next week or two, your brain will be turning and churning and thinking like, what do I do as an adult that maybe I need to open the curtain a little bit and let my kids see? Do I need to talk out loud about the fact that we have a family budget? Do I need to talk out loud about how it works when I pay for something with a card and the kids don't see the cash, exchanging hands anymore? Do I need to remind my kids to look someone in the eye when they're speaking to them, or teach them how to communicate on the phone, right? It's so difficult in busy life to sometimes slow down and see that. So if nothing else, I hope that your perspective has changed just a bit. And then in the next few weeks, you can see some of those opportunities where you can build in passing on those life skills to your kids.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us today, everything. And again, check that link in the show notes so you and your family, your kids can catch the Life Skills Camp this summer. Thanks, Katie.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you so much for listening to the Family Brand Podcast. To say thank you, we have something really awesome we'd love to share with you.
We often hear from families who will tell us that they just feel so overwhelmed because of the demands that are placed on them. They feel like they're constantly being pulled in so many different directions and spread thin, and they're spending time as a family, but they don't feel like it's quality time. They're not really connected, and they want to be more intentional. And we can certainly relate because we felt like that at one point in our family. And so we created a guide that allowed us to really be more confident around how we spend time as a family. and what we say yes to and what we say no to. And it's just brought so much more peace into our home. It's made our lives so much more simple, and we want to share it with you. So if you go to familybrand.com/free, you can download the How to Take Back Your Family's Time guide. And I can promise you it'll give you more confidence and more peace in your life and in your family.
One last thing, we feel so inspired when we hear from families that we are making a difference for them. We would love it if you would leave us a 5-star rating and a review on the podcast so we can reach even more amazing families. We truly believe that the way we change the world is one family at a time.